Okay, welcome to the No Bullshit News Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very important. Remember, do not vote for RFK Jr. Do not vote for this guy. No, don't do it. I wouldn't do it. I'm not voting for him. You shouldn't vote for him. Don't vote for Bobby Kennedy at all. Don't do it. Just don't do it, right, Bobby?
That's right.
Live from downtown Detroit, it's the No Bullshit News Hour with my main man, Charlie LeDuff, and Karen Dumas.
This just in, breaking news. No more bullshit. No more bullshit.
We've been trying to get off the ballot. We won in the Court of Appeals, but they reversed us in the Supreme Court. It's ironic, of course, Charlie, that I was fighting to get on the ballot and the Democratic Party was suing me to get me off the ballot. And then as soon as I announced for Donald Trump and said I wanted to get off the ballot, they pivoted and began suing me to keep me on the ballot. And they won in the Supreme Court.
Welcome to Michigan, bro.
So I'm I'm campaigning all over the state and asking people not to vote for me, to vote for Donald Trump, because if the only way that I'm going to get to Washington and make America healthy again and help President Trump end the war in Ukraine and help him end the censorship and surveillance state is if he gets in the White House. And if people vote for me, there's a good chance that Vice President Harris could win this state. And I think that would be not good for our country.
Which we'll get into. Let's just real quick to put a bow on this thing. The Supreme Court of Michigan ruled that the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, doesn't have to take you off. There's no law preventing her from requiring her to take you off. It's her decision. It's her decision. And she wanted you off. And she wanted Cornel West off. So This shit's rotten. It's just rotten.
Yeah. It's not a good system. It's not a good optic for the world where we're supposed to be the world's exemplary democracy. And, listen, the Democratic Party that I grew up with was a Democratic Party that was all about making sure that everybody had a right to vote and that they could vote for whoever they wanted. And this Democratic Party is a party that no longer trusts the people of the United States. And it feels like it has to manipulate information, censor and manipulate elections so that we don't really have a choice. And that's not a good thing for democracy, and it's not a good example for the rest of the world.
Okay, so look, there's a lot of people, my family, friends. I was down at Mel's Garage in Ferndale yesterday, and Austin the barber's there. He said, I love Bobby. Bobby says go Trump, then I'm going Trump. I love Bobby. I said, okay. He said, but ask Bobby for me. Is Trump really going to go through it, or is he using you? Do you have assurances that if Trump wins, there's a place for you to make America healthy again in this administration?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because the last time around, President Trump didn't do anything that I would have liked him to do. And, the record that he left on Capitol Hill, I mean, I was opposing almost everything he did.
For instance?
Well, he appointed an oil lobbyist to run the Interior Department. He said he was going to drain the swamp. He appointed a coal lobbyist to run EPA. He appointed a pharmaceutical lobbyist to run Health and Human Services. He appointed a telecom lobbyist to run FCC. And you can go down the list. John Bolton, who's the head of the National Security State, was appointed to the National Security Agency. And so he brought in the military-industrial complex and, big corporations to run the government. And I'm against that now. In getting to really know Donald Trump, I've known Donald Trump for 40 years. I've sued him twice and won those suits. But my impression was pretty much center of the Democratic Party during the last time around. I thought the building of the wall was stupid. I don't think that now. I thought some of his policies, because his policies, I thought abroad of trying to get good deals for America abroad, that those were good. But a lot of the policies at home I disagreed with. And I thought his personality was filled with bombast and erratic, and I believed all of the propaganda about him as well. Oh, you can build up a big inventory of things to dislike about Donald Trump if you don't question anything. And then I started having these conversations. He called me 3 hours after the shooting in Butler. He called me up and we spent about a half an hour on the phone, and he said, I want to work with you and figure out a way to unify our efforts.
So the guy just took a bullet to the ear.
3 hours earlier, yeah.
Okay.
And I agreed to meet with him the next day in Milwaukee, and we ended up meeting there and having about a 2.5-hour meeting. And then we had a series of conversations and meetings after that, and the biggest one being in Mar-a-Lago, I don't know, about 6 weeks ago. But in those, the proposal he was making is, you're not coming out and quitting the race and endorsing me, but we're unifying our efforts. We're going to create a unity party. You continue to run in red states and blue states, leave your name on the ballot, take them off.
But don't vote for you, yeah.
Well, no, in the red states or blue states, people can do what they want.
Don't confuse the American public. Don't vote for Bobby.
You're right.
Yeah.
Don't vote for Bobby.
Don't vote for Bobby.
But I took him off in all of or tried to take him off in all of the battleground states where I could end up giving the election to President Harris. President Trump, during those conversations, and this is an answer to your question, President Trump said to me, look, the last time I was in office, in 2016, I came in, I had no idea how to govern. We didn't really expect to win, and then we won. And I was surrounded by corporations and lobbyists, and they all came in and said, appoint this guy, appoint that guy. And he said, I appointed a lot of bad people. And you know how he talks? He said, bad people like that. And
he sounds like a
And
goat.
he said, I'm not going to do that again. And he said, I'm going to,
you know what? At least he fired the bad people.
He fired a lot of them.
It was a carousel, but he fired them.
He fired a lot
They
of
don't
them.
get to stay.
Yeah, but I believe him. I think he's more concerned now with his legacy. He's more concerned with actually restoring the economy in this country, with ending the warfare state abroad, making sure that instead of going to war, we use diplomacy and we make deals with people, and deals that are not good for China and bad for us, but deals that are actually good for everybody. That, enrich prosperity around the world. I think he, clearly he wants to end the chaos at the border, which, I'm 100% behind him on, and I don't think Kamala can do that.
Let's jump in there, okay? Well, let's.
Yeah. And finally, the big other issue I had besides war, censorship and surveillance, is making America healthy again.
We're gonna
we'll talk
let's
about
do that border for a minute. Did you see the director of ICE, the statistics he put out yesterday? During this border surge, knowingly, ICE, the Biden-Harris administration has let in 15,000 convicted murderers, 20,000 convicted rapists, 425,000 ex-cons, and a couple thousand more who were awaiting trial in their home country for murder. This doesn't include the gotaways. What did they fucking do here?
It's so outrageous. Yeah, that should be over. It's not going to be over because the mainstream media is not even reporting this.
They're not even reporting this.
It's really quite extraordinary because it validates everything he's been saying. He's been saying for months they emptied their prisons and sent them up here, and the liberal media has been ridiculing him for that. And as it turns out, he was dead on right.
And don't forget, that's countries that cooperate and exchange information. Venezuela doesn't exchange information. Cuba, Nicaragua, China, Russia. We don't know how many.
Right.
God,
It could be 1 million.
God damn. Well, one's too many. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love this country. What do you feel about dual citizenship? Because when we're talking about a pathway for everybody, okay, fair. The plurality of people that came here illegally are Mexican nationals. They're allowed to hold dual citizenship. So at some point, people that entered illegally could be the most powerful voters on the continent. What do you feel about that?
Well, dual citizenship, I'm not against dual citizenship. That dual citizenship has been around
Since the 60s?
at least since the 60s. I don't know before that, but, there are many, probably the majority of countries in the world allow dual citizenship. There's a few that don't, but I don't see a big problem with that. We get the advantage of a lot of people who come over here and bring us enormous talent. And I think that's what we need. I mean, the problem is we don't want the Sinaloa drug cartel running our immigration
Well, that's
policy.
true, too, obviously. But again, I mean, if you came not legally, how about a pathway to residency and a green card? And your
what I would do is wouldn't talk about that stuff until the border is sealed tight. You can't tell Americans, okay, we're going to start naturalizing, big swaths of these people and rewarding them for bad behavior without first giving us the assurance it's never going to happen again. So, and then, look, we need more people in this country. Our birth rate has plummeted. Our fertility rates are plummeting. We have a demographic time bomb coming, and Social Security is going to collapse. We got 500,000 jobs that can't be filled with Americans. And we need those jobs over here, but we need to be bringing over the people that want here.
Are vetted
and that we actually want to have in our country and
100%.
And are going to bring benefits and pay taxes and do all the things. And we have a system. That system is kind of broken. We need wider gates, but higher walls. That's the way I would put it.
Yeah, the walls work around urban centers. See, a long time ago, I told Trump, the wall doesn't work. I mean, it works in like Calexico, Mexicali, Bisbee, McAllen, because that's everybody melts into the urban center. But we all just learned what the wall truly does, because if you touch American soil and claim amnesty, well, you see what you get. So that's all got to be overhauled. Let's move quickly because you're very busy going to Macomb.
Going to Macomb.
Get a root beer and get out, bro.
All right.
Macomb's tough. Okay.
That's your hometown, right?
No, I'm in Oakland County, Ukraine. We just promised another $8 billion to Zelensky. I did my own math, okay? This is retail price, brother, okay? For $5 billion, you can build a double-wide trailer for every homeless vet in the United States, 40,000 people, with $3 billion left over for services. What the fuck are we doing over there? What's the end game? Where are you at? Where's Trump with it? What's the end game?
Trump will end the war.
How?
It's not hard to end the war. You have to sit down with Putin, which they won't do. In fact, they have a law in Ukraine saying it's a crime to negotiate with Putin. I mean, imagine that. My uncle would have been in World War III if he wasn't talking to Khrushchev. He installed a hotline, so they didn't have to even consult their bureaucrats. They were exchanging private letters between each other. The height of the Cold War, 26 letters. And, my uncle said, if you want peace, you got to understand your adversary. And, all we do, Putin has tried twice to settle this war on terms that were very beneficial to us. Once with the Minsk Accords in 2019, and then again in April of 2022, they signed a peace agreement. Zelensky signed it, initialed it.
For the Minsk, for the people that don't really know, it's basically the Donbas region will have some semi-autonomy, right?
Yeah,
and number two,
it's like
you won't join NATO.
It's like Quebec in Canada. Right. They get to keep their own language.
It's like Puerto Rico.
Right. Or, I would say even not as, even a closer relationship than Puerto Rico, but they would be allowed, what happened is we overthrew the United States government, USAID and the CIA, overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine in 2014, and we installed a government to our liking. And, that was February of 2014. That's when the war really began. And the new government that we installed killed 14,000 ethnic Russians in Donbass and Lugansk. The Donbass and Lugansk then voted to join Russia. And Putin said, I don't want you. I want you to stay part of Ukraine, but let's settle this so that you can have your, speak your own language, have your own culture. But most of all, let's make an agreement that NATO does not come into Ukraine. And that was the big red line issue, because NATO having a hostile army in Ukraine has a 2,200-mile border with Russia. And if we put Aegis missile systems in there, the Tomahawk missiles, which are nuclear tipped, we're 3 minutes from Moscow. So the Russians can't tolerate that. No country, no big power of the world would tolerate
You were
that.
here last time, and I said when your uncle was president and the Russians tried to put missiles in our former
We were
beach,
going to go to Cuba.
Cuba.
We were going to go to war with Cuba if they didn't take them out.
right? So now all of a sudden, Kyiv is older than Moscow, and all of a sudden you're going to make it NATO and put missiles in there. My neighbors don't seem to understand this. I got a neighbor lives on the Bend, and the first lawn sign you see is "I'm with Ukraine," and then you turn the bend, and there's the next sign that says "Peace on Earth."
Yeah.
They're not
I
informed.
mean, they had peace. They could have had a great peace agreement. And President Biden, when Zelensky signed it and the Russians signed it, the Russians were withdrawing troops. And Biden sent Boris Johnson over to Ukraine and forced Zelensky to tear it up. And since then, 600,000 Ukrainian kids have died, 300,000 Russians. It's not good for anybody.
And I smell the solution.
We
sir.
caused the war.
I smell the solution, which is we all get to the table and go, you won't be part of NATO, and there's not going to be missiles there.
Exactly. And
There's
that's
a good
all.
place to start.
That is what he wanted.
Okay, so we can take care of our fucking vets.
Yeah,
That's my
exactly.
family.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I know you got to go with just a couple things here. Did you notice I scraped the ceilings for you?
I know. I'm so touched that you.
I did.
that
I
stuff.
was like, Bobby's coming. I'm going to scrape the ceilings. Yeah, because I know how you're about leading this.
And you got the lighting fixed in here. It's very pleasant.
You look marvelous.
Thank you.
Food. Okay, here's my take. I'm just roundabout way of saying it. The election. Okay, Trump will pick up black men. He'll pick up Latino men, right? Women are locked in, but the people that left Trump from 16 to 20 are white educated men. 11% of them left, right? So anything he picks up is a bonus. But here's you. All of a sudden, you're talking about kids, health, food. That starts to resonate in the burbs. That starts to resonate with women. So
It's women and young people, really. Those are the people who are deeply concerned with the poisoning of our country. We have now the highest chronic disease rate in any country in the world. When my uncle was president, we had fewer than 6% of Americans had chronic disease. Today, somewhere around 60% do. Our kids are so sick, 77% of them cannot qualify for military service. The obesity epidemic is destroying us. 3.4% of Americans were obese when my uncle was president. Today, it's 74% are obese or overweight. It's crazy. You look at the old pictures of what America used to look like, there weren't anybody, there was no obese people. We were all slim. And I'm talking, Woodstock, 68, 69. And now, when my uncle was president, we spent zero on chronic disease. Now we spend 4.3 trillion.
why are we so sick?
We're sick because we're being mass poisoned mainly by our foods, also by our medicines, but mainly by our foods. The food, we have 80,000 chemicals in our foods, about 1,000 chemicals that we allow, ingredients that we allow in our food are banned in Europe. So that's why we're sick. And, our fertility levels have collapsed. Teens today have 50% of the testosterone they had 2 generations ago, 50% of the sperm count. Little girls are hitting puberty at 8. The average puberty in our country for girls is between 10 and 13, which is 6 years younger than it was a couple of generations ago. It's the youngest in the world. And that because a lot of the chemicals in our foods metabolize into estrogen. And the estrogen is feeding ovarian cancers. It's feeding infertility and all kinds of fertility problems. And then, it's also our kids are under mitochondrial stress. And mitochondria are for example, diabetes.
Mitochondria, I've heard you say this, it's in a cell.
It's the
what is
the energy center of the cell, and it is the center that turns food and light and everything else into energy and keeps our body going. And it's the basis of our immune system. Well, if the mitochondria can be stressed, if they're repeatedly stressed, every chemical, all these chemicals that are in our food are now operating on biological pathways that stress them, and sometimes they just quit, and then the body shuts down. You get autoimmune diseases, you get other diseases. Diabetes is a mitochondrial disorder. Alzheimer's is mitochondrial disorder. It is now classified.
The outbreak of
Alzheimer's and diabetes are directly related to the food. Yeah. So, when I was a kid, the average pediatrician saw one case of diabetes in his lifetime over a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. A lot of these exposures are also related to neurodevelopmental disorders. Like, you and I were joking before about the red dyes and yellow dyes. Those cause ADHD. They're linked to cancer, tumor growth. And other nations don't allow them in their food.
So
if you go buy Fruit Loops in Canada,
yeah,
it's the same company Kellogg's making it, or in Europe, but it doesn't have any dyes in it. It has vegetable dyes. Ours, the same company, is poisoning us and deciding not to poison Canadians.
Then why do we do it? Do we sell more, per capita? Because
well, it's cheaper for them, and it's more colorful, brighter colors, which they say the kids like, but it's poisoning the kids. All of those.
This is America, man, and you know what's more important than death? Money. So. Yeah, we'll let you get the, work on getting the poison out of the food, unless, of course, the stock price goes down and, receipts go down.
Well, I mean, the mechanism is that the big agricultural companies and the big food companies, which are really big tobacco companies, own the regulatory agencies. They own FDA. FDA gets 50% of its budget from the industry.
Right.
So they run the FDA. The public doesn't have anything to do with it. And they run the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And what happened is during the 1990s, the tobacco industry was under attack, and they had a lot of money, but they saw that their consumer base was shrinking, and they were getting sued. So they took all this huge money and they bought all the big food companies. Right. By the middle of the 1990s, the 2 biggest food companies in America and the world were R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris Tobacco Company, and they moved thousands of scientists off their tobacco research into figuring out how to make food addictive. And those scientists developed all kinds of new chemicals that were made in labs, not in nature, that did things to the human body to make you so that you're not satiated by certain kind of food, but they're addictive. They're MSG and all of these other salts and all of these other materials that make you want to constantly eat. And those are the foods that are making people fat because, for those.
Because they inhibit your receptors saying, I'm satiated. Just keep dumping it in.
You can't keep dumping it in.
Again, I want to say this. It sounds like a great idea until it screws my 401k. Do you have the fortitude when people start complaining that their General Mills stock is going down? Are we going to stick with this? Is this for real?
Well, I mean, those companies have lots of ways of bringing pressure on the American government. And that's why I think it's important to have a Trump in there, because he seems less susceptible to those kind of pressures than any other president that we've had. He's willing to sort of break things. And I think you need somebody up there. During COVID, he shut down 3.3 million businesses. So this is a bigger emergency than COVID by 10 times. we're literally killing our country. This is existential for our country. Our country is not going to, collapse because we got our 401ks wrong, or because we got the formula for the social safety net wrong, or we're going to collapse and die because of food poisoning, because we're poisoning all of our kids. And everybody has now got chronic diseases, and they're dependent on lifetime medications, and they have less energy, they have less intelligence. We just, I was part of a group that funded a lawsuit that we won this week after 7 years of litigation of getting fluoride out of our water. Fluoride is a byproduct of the chemical industry that they figured, will tell people that it stops cavities, and we'll put it in all the drinking water, and they got the government to go along with
Doesn't
them.
it?
Because they know. It destroys your bones, and it destroys IQ.
I swallow my toothpaste because I'm brushing in the shower.
It dramatically drops IQ. Now, the fluoride that you're worried about is not.
I swallow my toothpaste when I brush in the shower.
You shouldn't swallow it for sure.
That's what's happening.
But the fluoride's in the water. The topical fluoride.
What do you mean you shouldn't swallow it? How dare you? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, what is fluoride from?
Fluoride is a byproduct of the chemical industry of refining. What?
Is it petroleum-based?
Petroleum and other chemicals. It's a number of chemical processes that produce fluoride, and it was a waste product, and they figured out a way to market it, by getting the government to say, and essentially bribing the American Dental Association to support its inclusion in our water supply.
I promise Stephanie to get you out because you're super.
And Europeans don't allow it, but they have the same or fewer cavities than we do.
Yeah, Europe's cool. I lived there for a number of years. I like Europe.
I'm Grace Karros, and I'm third generation of American Coney Island. People say Detroit's a comeback city. I say, where you been? We've been here for over 100 years. My family's been here on the same corner, serving our famous proprietary American Coney Island hot dog. So like always, we're keeping things fresh, updated, and new. We'd love to have you come downtown and visit us, but if you can't, you can always go to AmericanConeyIsland.com, order a Coney kit, get it delivered fresh right to your door.
Archangel, are you an entrepreneur looking for a safe and socially responsible real estate investment? Here's what it is. I don't mean to make it sound like this, but it's franchising. It's franchising. You are a caregiver. You buy the product from Archangel. The flow, they staff it for you. They get the property. That's what the investors come in for. And you, like a restaurant, work it off, and eventually you become the owner. The investor gets paid. The caregivers can actually end up being their own bosses. People get to live in communities. They're clean. They're small. They're tight. If you are interested in investing in this, you'll get a better explanation from Archangel. 989-614-0416. Believe me, this is the future. This is what's happening in Abu Dhabi. This is what's happening in Phoenix, Arizona. It is the new way. We've seen what's squalor and filth. And by the way, who else benefits? The people that live in these places,
The
right?
people that need care.
The people that need care, that work their whole lives, that don't want to be sucked dry and left in a dirty diaper. It's not like that. It's a nice communal living organization. Archangel, 989-614-0416.
This message of Uplift is brought to you by business and personal wealth advisor Luke Nowacki, who reminds you that what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but never enter the kingdom of God? But while you're waiting, Nowacki wants you to remember that overreaction is not a sound financial strategy. So call Luke Nowacki at 248-663-4748 for sound financial advice.
The vaccine and nursing homes. If you guys make it to Washington, can you, especially we here in Michigan, are we going to get a nursing home investigation? What happened there? Who died, how many died, and get some kind of strategy for end-of-life care in this country, because we got a good look at it, and it ain't good.
Yeah, I don't have a plan for end of life care because all of the things when I was running Charlie, I said I'm going to only have policies that I don't require Congress to participate in. In other words, things that I could do through policy changes, through personnel changes, through executive orders, or through regulation. And end of life care is part of a kind of what to me is an insurmountable and intractable medical problem. It's a function of corporate control of our everything to do with medicine. 15 years ago, 80% of doctors in this country were independent and 20% work for corporations. Today, 80% work for corporations. And when you're working for a corporation, you're no longer concerned with public health or your patient's health. You're concerned with maximizing the mercantile interests of that company, or you're going to lose your job. So if they tell you give a vaccine that you know is going to take people sick, or you're going to lose your job, you look and say, hey, I've got $1 million in medical bills. If I lose this, I'm going to be on the street. And you do what you're told. So there's a lot of bad decisions being made. And you saw, how doctors behaved during COVID, where they went along, even when it was clear a lot of this stuff was, nonsense. And so there's a lot of,
Notice how people don't challenge that anymore? The nonsense, right? It was nonsense. You were a conspiratorialist. Now everybody, okay, maybe we shouldn't have commingled old people. Maybe the vax didn't work. Maybe it did come from a lab. Notice how there's very little pushback now?
Yeah, there's nobody who's coming. Very few people say we made a mistake. There's just kind of an evolution of assumptions where nobody wants to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, notice how you're not a loon anymore? Now that you have some
I'm still a loon, but, they think of other reasons to make me a loon.
Okay, I know I got to get you out. So I guess last question, since you're going to be working with health, and some of us have habits. Brother, could you please get a couple of smoking lounges in the airports for us? Some of us smoke, and we don't want to blow it on people. It's just not right. Can we get a couple?
I'm not going to help you there, Charlie.
Okay, don't vote for Bobby Kennedy. Do not vote for Bobby Kennedy. Michigan, don't vote for Bobby Kennedy.
I'm trying to make America healthy again. I'm not trying to, make America help people.
And if you vote for Bobby Kennedy, he cannot help you get healthy again. How fucking weird is that? Sir, thank you for coming in.
Charlie, thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy it. I'm really happy to be here with you.
And you're going to be in Macomb?
Yes.
You know what the best thing to do in Macomb?
What's that?
Take a dump and get out. It's my town, I can say it.